Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Patty Wiseman, author of That's One Moment. Patty, welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Are you ready to get started?
I sure am.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
You know, I get that question a lot, and my number one answer is learn the craft. Learn the mechanics. Utilize a plot diagram, because you're eventually going to be sending your book to an editor, and it's going to be so much easier if you've already learned the dynamics of how to write a book, the rise and fall in the story, the resolution. It'll be so much easier once you send it to the editor if you've already have command of that part of it, instead of having them come back and redline everything. You know, just learn the craft first.
Absolutely. And you're referring to mainly the fiction type of books, correct?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of fiction. But even in autobiographies or memoirs and stuff like that, there's still a plot diagram that you probably should follow just to get the smoothness and the flow of the story.
Absolutely. It reminds me of high school English when they would teach us about that, about the climax and the resolution, because those are the main elements in every single story, whether it be fiction, nonfiction. I mean, in terms of anything, you can always tell a story and to be able to use that framework.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to learn it first before you sit down. So many people think, oh, I have this story, I'm going to sit down and write it, and they're just all over the place with it. And I've found that in a lot of people that I mentor. And, you know, just learn the craft first.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Well, that's an interesting question, too. I would say it's finding the right publisher, one that fits your needs, because there's so many out there, unless you're targeting the big five, or is it six? I don't really know. But if you are targeting the big publishers, you know, get your query letter, all of that. But if you're not aiming that way, then find the one that fits your needs. Do the research on these publishers. We've seen them come in and out of business, and look for somebody that's really interested in your dream and for fulfilling that particular dream, not just nickel and diming you, you know, for this and that. But I really feel like a good publisher, you can work hand in hand and do amazing things.
And you went through a traditional publisher, is that correct?
I went through a small press publisher. I just felt that fit my needs a little better. I retained more control, and, you know, I just loved working with the people that I was working with, and that's so important. You have to find people that are willing to listen to you and realize that it's your dream. It's just not about making money.
Well, and you bring up a great point, especially to work with publishers that are going to share your vision, because from what I found, one of the biggest challenges to working with traditional publishers is that you lose a lot of the control with that. So if you can work with a smaller publisher where you can retain most of that control, I really do feel it makes all the difference.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times traditional publishers will change your book cover, they'll change your title, you know, just a lot of things that you put so much forethought into and fit your vision of what the story was about. And so I'm a little bit of a control freak that way, I think. I want it to be my cover and my title. And I want that publisher to understand that and work with me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, having that, at the end of the day, a book's almost like having another child because it's your baby. You want it to do well, but you want to be able to have that control because the minute you lose it, you just don't know what's going to happen with that book.
Absolutely. And, they're looking at it, the traditional publishers, I think they're looking at it almost like a formula that, they know what's going to sell. So you have to do it this way. Now, that's fine and dandy if that's what you're all about. But if you're really trying to put a unique, interesting, and well-written story out there, then, a small press publisher can help you realize that just a little bit better, I think.
Let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
Well, I've launched several books. I have an award-winning book out there called That One Moment. And what I like to do, and it's kind of different from other people, but I have a bed and breakfast in Jefferson, friend that owns it, and she puts on a launch party for me. We serve wine, we get a cake with the book cover on it. We serve little snacks. We have giveaways. And sometimes if you go in partnership with another author who is launching a book, you can keep your costs down a little bit. But people just love to come in and make it an informal thing, and they sit down and talk to you about the book, and you can even translate that into an online marketing strategy where we're so fortunate to have things like Facebook Live, things like that you can do. I've done giveaways on my Facebook page and actually did a live drawing one time that way, and people just loved it. So think outside the box when you do a book signing. Bed and breakfast, if they have a good room for you to do that, and in my case it was a gazebo, it was walled in, but it worked perfectly.
Well, and it seemed it would also...
I do a lot of...
sorry, go ahead.
I do a lot of live events. I do a lot of live events, and that's why I enjoy doing that.
Well, and you bring up a great point. That's what I was going to ask you. Is it also seems to bring more of a prestige into it, where the bed and breakfast go, hey, we're going to have an author come do this book signing. Come check it out. We're going to have some wine. We'll have some snacks. We'll have a nice little book signing opportunity. So it definitely seems like a win-win.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It gets advertising out there for them and for me, and we work hand in hand with that. And you can go to any town and find great bed and breakfasts and just approach the people and ask them if they'd like to work with you to have a book signing. I do grand openings a lot, too. That's a hoot. I love doing that. So there's a lot of cool ideas out there for live events. But you can also do Facebook events where you do a book launch exactly like that.
Could you clarify a little bit more about what you mean about the grand opening events? That sounds really intriguing as well.
Well, my first one ever was a few years back, and it was an antique store. And she invited me to come and do a book signing there while she was doing the grand opening. The Chamber of Commerce came, the news people came, and I got, front page news and sold a lot of books, and she just thought I would be a draw for her grand opening. And it was such a great success that I have done several since then when I can find them and people are willing to do that. A lot of people know people that are opening a business or a friend of a friend like that, but grand openings are great.
Now, what different types of grand openings have you done? I know you mentioned the tea house, but what other type of businesses have you done the grand openings with for your sign-ins?
I did one for an Italian restaurant one time. And, yeah, it really is just any kind of business. There's been a Menchie's yogurt one time. They had a grand opening, and I did that. I'm a president of our East Texas Writers Association, and he had a bunch of our authors come in there at different times. We weren't all there together. We scheduled our time periods. But he put on his Facebook page and in the newspaper our pictures and the books we wrote and what times we were going to be there and just that kind of thing. So I've done numerous types of things, antique stores, all that kind of thing.
Well, you are our first guest that has talked about utilizing grand openings and utilizing bed and breakfast, so I really appreciate you sharing that, because that is just an amazing strategy.
Yeah, it works for me, I'll tell you.
I think I might have to try it out as well. I really like that. I'm in my local Chamber of Commerce as well. That'd be a great way to connect with those different types of grand openings.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Well, it used to be, because I was that kid that would read under the covers with a flashlight. It used to be Gone with the Wind, by Margaret Mitchell. But as I got older, I read Diana Gabaldon's The Outlander. And, she has a series. I think there's 7 or 8 books, and I've read every one of them. But what I loved about her was she kind of sparked my interest in time travel. Although I don't write time travel, I'm very interested in it. And I loved her descriptive writing. And so I learned a lot about descriptive writing by reading the Outlander series. And I used that in my writing. It kind of opened that door for me to learn how to write descriptively.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My absolute favorite quote is from Dolly Parton, and she says, "Find out who you are and do it on purpose." And we all know that Dolly, she defined who she was, and she did it on purpose, and she's been a great success. And every author can learn to be a different personality and bring out that uniqueness in your voice and your personality in order to sell books.
I love that quote.
That's my favorite.
I love it. Well, Patty, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
I'm all over social media. I have a website too, pattywiseman.com. I'm all over Facebook. I have a fan page. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter and Google+. You can find me anywhere.
Excellent. Well, Patty, I want to thank you for being a guest once again on our show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you, Paul, for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.